Welcome to T1 Academy. On our Road to IELTS series, a free resource class for all the aspirants who plan to take the IELTS and score a band 9, in today's video, we're going to take up section 1 of the reading segment and see how well we could crack it. So let's begin. Just for the benefit of all, let me repeat that the academic reading test, the time duration is 60 minutes only, and it consists of 3 lengthy passages of 3 different sections, and the number of questions that are asked are 40. These questions can be asked to test your reading proficiency on a number of areas, including reading for the gist, reading for the key ideas, for the details, to skim and scan, to grasp the logical reasoning, and to understand the writer's opinion, attitude, and the very purpose of writing this text. Now, there are 3 lengthy passages, as I have already told you. It could range between 1500 to 200 words per passage, and they could range from being discursive to factual to descriptive, and they are included in the academic version. The passages are derived from books, journals, periodicals, and newspapers and have been modified from their original texts. The passages are specially chosen with non-specialist readership in mind. Non-specialist readership is all of us for whom English is a second language, and it is very, very suitable for applicants for their degree programs and also for those who wish to register themselves for a profession in a native English-speaking country. Okay, so today we're going to look at one sample reading test. In that, we're going to deal with section 1. Now, the title of the sample test that we have taken today is Bakelite. I would like all of you to take snapshots of the reading text. I'll tell you when we come back after we take the snapshots how to identify and underline the keywords, how to skim and scan. Now, you can take screenshots of this. Like I had already told you, whenever you are reading through a particular text, ensure that you underline the names, the days, the dates, the years, the events, and the different processes and names of the different materials. Here we are going to deal with the process of making Bakelite. So as you see, you got to underline 1907, you got to underline the name, you got to underline the new synthetic material that we're talking about, you have to underline semi-synthetic, entirely synthetic, thermoplastic, and there's thermosetting as well. All of these you've got to underline. Now moving on to the next, I hope you've taken a snapshot of the earlier one. The next one, all right, discovery of a series of semi-synthetic thermoplastic materials in the mid-19th century. So 19th century, that becomes important. Substitutes for dwindling supplies of materials such as tortoise shell and ivory. This is important. Early plastics were generated. That is also important. Once you skim through it, you really, you kind of understand what you actually want. Now, chemistry being the most important subject. All right, 1900 is another thing. Arbolic acid, aldehyde, a combination of a volatile fluid. That's something that you have to underline. Invention of photographic paper, Bakelite, development of plastics. All of these are very, very important. Manufactured on industrial scale. All right, reaction between phenol and formaldehyde. That is another thing. Okay. Now, on 13 July 1907, Bakelite took his famous patent describing the preparation. This is essential because all the features are still in use today. So that is a fact that we need to underline. Now, we need to underline the word novolac. This is the resin. Okay. This resin was also allowed to cool in trays until it hardened and then broken and ground. So, molding of resin. Also underline formaldehyde and phenol. Okay, formaldehyde and phenol from wood and coal, so fillers. All right, and you have to underline hexa, a compound of ammonia and formaldehyde which supplied additional formaldehyde that was necessary for thermosetting. That is one more thing. Okay. So these are the things that we need to underline. Now, the next thing in this passage that we need to underline is the molding process. The molding process, because the whole idea of the passage is about the creation of Bakelite. All right. Now, Although treated with disdain in the early years, it went on to enjoy unparalleled popularity throughout the first half of the 20th century. So initially it was not a welcome. So that is one thing that we need to remember. All right, now we have reached the first section of the first segment, that is complete the summary. So summarizing is the first segment. Here he is asking us to use only one word from the passage for each of the answers and write your answers in boxes 1 to 3 of your answer sheet. Now, some plastics behave in a way similar to dash in that they melt under heat and can be molded into new forms. The answer is candle wax. This, when I made you underline plastics, the word plastics in the very first few paras of the passage, this word is already there. Now, the next one. Bakelite was unique because it was first material to be both entirely synthetic. This word also we have underlined. We have underlined thermosetting, thermoheating as well as origin, if you remember, as part of our keywords. So that is how we skimmed. Alright. Now, there are several reasons for research into plastics in the 19th century. Among them, the great advances that had been made in the field of, remember, chemistry we have underlined. Obviously, chemistry involves the making of new things from, okay. In search for alternatives for natural resources like ivory, there was another word, tortoise shell. Okay, tortoise shell was also mentioned. So tortoise shell was the keyword, ivory was the keyword we have underlined. So it talks about development or advancement in the field of chemistry. So that's how you're supposed to skim, underline the word so that it becomes extremely easy for you to be able to answer these kind of questions. Let's look at another segment of questions. Now, complete the flowchart. Use only one word from the passage for each of the answers. Write your answers in boxes 4 to 8. Now, when I say section 1, I'm dealing with one passage so that you get familiarized with answering the different types of questions. When we move on to the listening and the spoken segments as well, there also we'll be looking at the nuances of how to crack those exams too. Now, questions 4 to 8, let us see. Production of bakelite. Phenol and formaldehyde combine under vacuum. Stage 1 resin is called novolac. If you go back and check the pages, you will understand that we have underlined the word novolac. I'll show you. That's the reason I said it is important for us to know where we stand and how we are trying to identify the keywords. Now moving on. Novolac, cool until hardened, break up and grind into powder. Now, these are fillers such as cottonwood, asbestos. This also we have underlined. I've made you underline that. Okay. The sixth one is hexa. Hexa is the product which is a combination of ammonia plus formaldehyde. If you go back and look at the pages, you'll understand. We had underlined hexa also. Now, seventh one, let's move on to the next one. Stage 2, resin, cool until hardened, break up and grind into powder. Raw bakelite. Heat, pour into mold, apply intense heat and pressure. All these words we have underlined. Now, if you go to hexa, if you go to the word hexa in the passage and read the next 3 or 4 lines below hexa, you will get the answers to these 2 words also. So, whenever you identify a keyword, what you should do is 3 lines above the keyword and 3 lines below the keyword, 3 lines above the keyword and 3 lines below the keyword will give you the process, will give you the overall idea of the usage of that particular word, just like we have done here. You go to novolac, you will find filler underlined, you will find hexa also underlined. You go to hexa, you will find raw bakelite, you will also find heat and pressure. So that is the technique that one has to employ in order to be able to answer the questions without any delay. Now moving on to the next type of questions. What does he do? Which of the 2 following factors influencing the design of bakelite objects are mentioned in the text? So here you have to do elimination. And he says you can answer it in any order in boxes 9 and 10. Now, design of bakelite objects is the topic that we are trying to look for, which we have already done when we have underlined the important points in the text. The function which the object would serve, yes, it is going to serve as an alternate for wood, ivory, tortoiseshell. Okay. The ease with which resin could fill in the mold, yes, molding is mentioned there, the ease with which it is put in the mold once it cools down and then it is ground into powder. Okay. The facility with which the object could be removed from mold is not mentioned, it's not there. We don't know, information is not given. The limitations of material used to manufacture the mold, we are not talking about manufacturing of the mold, we are talking about the usage of mold to create bakelite objects. So that is also not mentioned. The fashionable styles of the period, that is late 19th and early 20th centuries, about the time when bakelite was invented, even that is not there. So your answers to 9 and 10 should be A, B or B, A in any order he said, right? So that's how you're supposed to answer this particular segment of questions. Now moving on to another kind of questions. Most of the questions come this way. Another kind of questions is true, false or not given. What does he say? In questions 13 to 11, do the statements agree with the information given in reading passage 1? In questions 11 to 13, write true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts the information, and not given if there's no information on that particular statement. Now let's see whether these statements are true or false or they are not given. Another important point that aspirants need to note here is very easy to identify the true or false statements. What do? If the statement agrees, we write true. If the statement doesn't agree, we write false. But how about not given? How do we solve this not given? Same like we discussed the parameters for finding the keyword and locating the answers. The same thing should be applied for not given as well. Identify the keyword. Okay. Read 3 lines above and 3 lines below, including this. Okay, so a total of 7 lines, 3 plus 3 plus 1. So when you read these 7 lines, you will understand whether the information that is given in that particular statement is actually included or it contradicts or it is not given. If the information exists with regard to that particular keyword, it should exist in one of those, either the 3 lines above or 3 lines below that particular keyword. Now, let's look at question number 11. Modern day plastic preparation is based on the same principles as patented in 1907. This is absolutely true. We have underlined this. Bakelite was immediately welcomed as a practical and versatile material. No, we have underlined the phrase, it was taken in disdain. So obviously this is false. Now, bakelite was only available in a limited range. In fact, bakelite was an alternate to the already existing limited range of colors or materials such as wood, tortoiseshell as well as ivory. So this also is false. So my dear aspirants, I think that makes the reading section become very easy. You've understood how to use the techniques of skimming and scanning, identifying the keywords, and then trying and locating your answer. For more on other segments, the shortcuts and the tips and tricks, do subscribe to Tone Academy. Thank you for watching.